The Millrose Games in New York City are coming, and historically speaking, that is one of the biggest indoor track and field events that we actually have on the calendar. So of course I am going to be paying attention. But this video is one that I had absolutely no intention on making. But here we are, because I'm looking at the starting list for who's going to be running across all of the events, specifically the professional ones, because they have a whole bunch of events that are not pro races that are going to go on that weekend. All that being said, I see a whole lot of issues that aren't so much about the Millrose Games, but are clearly affecting the sport. And if I'm seeing it, I know you're probably seeing it too. So let's get into it. For the record, I'm just going to go off of memory here. You're just getting raw emotion. Probably not going to edit that much. Just being honest, I just figured that you deserve to know the truth about what's going on. And if you don't like what I have to say, the comment section is there for that. But I'm going to just try to let it rip. So here we go. As far as my issues with the starting list, we just had the New Balance Indoor Grand Prix. And that event was billed as a high-level professional event. We looked forward to it. And when I looked at the starting list and who was supposed to be running and the races we got, I mean, you could argue whether it did or did not live up to the hype, but we were there and we saw talented athletes. Millrose is 6 days later on the calendar. So we run a race in Boston, and then 6 days later, you basically give me the same starting list again, minus some of the top names. Now, granted, when it comes to the distance events, there are some heavy hitters. There's going to be a whole lot to watch, whether it's 3K or the mile, and no, it's not exactly the same field. I mean, Cole Hocker, Yared Naguse, like, these are some huge names that are competing. But when it comes down to the sprints and the hurdles, in the sprints, Noah Lyles and Terrence Jones is not like a professional name yet, they're not going to be in the field. So they're basically giving us the same starting list they just gave us in New Balance, minus the guys who went 1 and 2, who at this point in their careers were clearly the best in that field. So you're giving me the same field minus them. Trayvon Bromell and Lamont Marcel Jacobs. That is a race that most people would want to see. You have 2 world indoor champions who've run incredibly fast through the years 2022 and 2023 in that event. But that was then, and this is now. Neither of them are showing us that they are in that form at this moment. I want to see them be at their absolute best. But they're facing off in a race where, to be honest with you, if you want to know who my pick is to win it, it's PJ Austin, the guy who nobody even knows, who's going to be on the line. Why? Because he beat them a week ago. Not even a week ago. 6 days before this one's going to go off, when they were running in Boston. But hey, it is what it is. You move on to the hurdles. Unfortunately, Masai Russell, who is the Olympic champion in the 100 hurdles, is coming back. That's a loaded field that they gave us for Boston, and the same field is coming again. It's essentially a grudge match. We're running it back. You get her, you get the world indoor record holder for the 60 hurdles, Devin Charlton, Akira Nugent, who's one of the fastest outdoors and very talented indoors, and beat Masai Russell indoors in college as well. I mean, I'm not complaining. It's just, we just did this last week, and we're doing it again. And I'm even going to have to say this part. In general, one of the biggest issues that we have with track and field, not just indoor track and field, but pro track and field in general, is nobody really knows what these races are actually for. The races are essentially practices. They're time trials more than anything else. I mean, people get appearance fees and they show up and all of that. For the record, in the women's 60, there was a major heavy hitter. I'm not even sure if I'm allowed to say the name, so I won't say it. But fundamentally, somebody was supposed to be on that starting line who is not on that starting line. I don't know why they're not on the line, other than the fact that my logic, when I look at everybody else who is coming, because it feels like nobody who's fast wants to run indoors this year in the 60. Julian Alford is coming off of an Olympic gold medal, so she ain't got no reason to run anymore. Sha'Carri Richardson never runs indoors. And everybody else who was in the Olympic final for the 60, at least the top 5 or 6 names, we ain't seeing none of them indoors, I don't think, from this point on. If we did. Shout out to Tia Clayton for giving us one race in Kazakhstan. I don't think we're going to see her again either. So we got there and run the races, but I did a poll on this channel and I asked people, do you care about indoor track and field? And the answer I got back was 80% of the people who responded. Granted, I mean, non-response bias is a thing, but 80% of the people who responded to the question, they said, we care about indoors. About 40% or so, again, going off of memory, said, we care about it. And the other 40%, they were like, we would care even more if the fastest people or the top athletes actually competed, but they don't. But if you're new here, I want to say thank you for even making it this far into the video. And I'm Coach Rob, the founder of SCArecruiting.com, where I rank the best track and field recruits across the entire nation. And if anything that I say actually connects with you, it is always greatly appreciated if you would please like and subscribe. But if I don't, just let me know in the comment section, because I try to read them all. I understand there's a larger conversation going on here about who actually shows up on the starting line. I mean, we got a women's 400 with Alexis Holmes in it. Shout out to her. She's an Olympic caliber athlete. But when you look at the write-up that they put out, I think it was like a World Athletics write-up, the only thing that they told us was Alexis Holmes is in the field. They didn't even feel like there was a point in mentioning that anybody else was going to be on the starting line. I guess that was their thought. Like, what's the point of telling them, because nobody was checking. In the 60 hurdles, that's a different situation for the men because Grant Holloway is the event now. That's just what it is. When he goes out, it's his event. So when he's not in the field, it's like, okay, somebody else is going to win today. More or less. And I do think it's a cool plot line that Dylan Beard is coming back. I don't know why he wasn't in Boston, but hey, he's coming back for Millrose this year, and he shockingly won it last year as an unattached athlete who was working for Walmart. And guess what? Now he's actually sponsored by Walmart, who doesn't sponsor track and field athletes, but they're sponsoring him. For obvious reason, given the situation. So he's coming back, and the field that ran in Boston behind Grant Holloway, they're bringing back a percentage of that field of the guys whose names you might recognize to run with Dylan Beard. And that's kind of how I see that race. But the fact that we just did this, like we just did it a week ago, and we rolled the same people out, even Quincy Wilson, who's coming back to run the indoor 600, like, I get it. He's on a national record tour. So I'm not mad at it, but it brings up a whole nother conversation. We have pro track, and we're just dropping high school athletes and college athletes into the fields. I mean, come on, man. Pro track and field is a thing, but it would be way better as an actual functional entity if the pros competed against each other regularly in races that actually mattered, that we as fans understood why they mattered. They weren't just bragging rights. It wasn't just running for some flowers they hand you at the end of it. It wasn't just running for an appearance fee or whatever it is. People want to see the best in the world compete. We know this because that's why the Olympics get the ratings that they do. People like it because they feel like they understand it. This narrative that people don't want to watch track and field, we need to shut that down. We know they do. They just need to understand it. Don't nobody know what these races are for. They're just showcases. I'm going to pay attention, and hopefully somebody does. Well, all the athletes are going to compete and give their best. I'm not really debating that, but yeah, hopefully there's something, sensational or, something exciting, I guess, for the track and field world. But if you're asking me, aside from, like some of these unique plot lines that slide in, if it doesn't happen for whatever athlete even has a name, you know what the response is going to be? Well, where we were in our training. Track and field is the only sport where we hide behind that. If a boxer go out there and fight, you just had a fight. Don't nobody want to hear where we are in our training. And literally no other sport functions like that. Track and field might be unique in the way that it's set up, but fans don't care about that. I talk to people who are casual track and field fans, the one who would like to watch it, enjoy the Olympics, don't really understand how to watch it, don't have a Peacock subscription. They may or may not see something flash across them when they're scrolling through a feed online. But they're not anti. They appreciated it enough to sit in front of a TV and focus on the sport for an extended period of time and really get excited about what they were watching, because it felt like it was USA versus the world if they're American, or it was the best in the world competing. They didn't know Sharika Jackson wasn't on the line, that the best women's 200 meter runner that we have in this generation at the moment wasn't showing up. So whoever won the gold at this Olympics was kind of like getting it by de facto because she wasn't out there to prove it? They don't know that. They just know what they saw. As far as they're concerned, Gabby Thomas is the best 200-meter runner in the world. She was on that track. She has that gold medal. It's going to go down in the history books. She still ain't beat Shericka Jackson in a race that actually mattered, as far as I remember, like in the last few years. The time Shericka was giving us is times that we ain't seen anybody be running since like the world record went down, which was prior to my lifetime. All that being said, I'm gonna come down from this. So Millrose Games is gonna go off, and hey, there's gonna be some talented athletes in the field. That's not what I'm saying. But the fact that we're essentially running it back with the same people who just ran in Boston, and in some of these fields, especially in the sprints, we just took the names out that were at the front. Come on, man. Really? As a sport, as a community, we have to do better, because we can't complain and say we want more money to flow through it, more media attention, and then what you give us is races of little consequence that either have fields that nobody really knows who's in it. Like, I even have to say this part. Megan Hunter just ran a collegiate lead in 800, but she's running at Millrose in a 400 for a woman who was never competitive in the NCAA in a 400, at least not in any championship level way. Why is she in this field running a 400? Can somebody please explain that to me? And don't tell me it's for her training, because her college, BYU, is in Utah. She's coming all the way to New York to run a 400 when she ain't even a 400 runner. I don't get it. But hey, I guess that's Millrose logic for you. I'm not trying to blame them or the meet organizers. Hey, all you can do is work with the landscape of what you're given, because the athletes, like, everybody's trying to row in the direction that's best for them, but until everyone in the sport, the meet organizers, the athletes, the agents, I guess the coaches, the clubs, for that matter, world athletics, if we're not all rowing in the same direction, this is what we're left with. It is what it is. Come holla at me in the comments. In the sport of track and field, race day is honestly the easy part, because all of the real work gets put in when nobody is watching. When you wear every day is training day gear, you can let the whole world know that your success in competition is not an accident. Order yours at scarecruiting.com/shop, or use the link in the description below, and it always comes with free shipping. It's a huge support to me and this channel, so I can continue to make you more content like this. And remember, it is always greatly appreciated if you would please like and subscribe.